My name is Emily Harper. I'm 31 years old. Last Tuesday, my younger sister smiled, hugged me goodbye, thanked me for helping her through another hard month, and quietly walked away with access to nearly every dollar I had. By sunrise, $8,140 had disappeared. Not because my bank had been hacked, not because a stranger had stolen my identity, because I had trusted my own sister. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I made coffee. I sat at my kitchen table staring at my banking app while the sun slowly climbed over the maple trees outside my window. Then I did something my family never expected me to do. By 7:42 the next morning, my sister was standing in the lobby of her apartment building, staring at her phone in complete panic while everything she had built on my generosity collapsed around her. But before I tell you what happened, where are you watching from today? Let me know your city and what time it is where you are. And if you enjoy emotional family stories with shocking twists, don't forget to subscribe. We have many more stories waiting for you. I work as a senior pediatric occupational therapist at a children's rehabilitation hospital in Columbus, Ohio. Most people assume my job is about teaching children how to move again after accidents or illnesses. It is, but it's also about patience. About celebrating tiny victories, about believing people can grow. Ironically, I believe that about everyone, especially my younger sister. Olivia was 27, funny, outgoing, beautiful, the kind of woman who could walk into a room and leave with 3 new friends before I had finished introducing myself. People loved her. She always had another dream, another business idea, another opportunity, another emergency. For almost 6 years, I had quietly become the person who solved those emergencies. A broken transmission, an unpaid electric bill, late rent, medical expenses that later turned out not to exist, student loan payments, security deposits, 3 different, life-changing business opportunities. Every time, she promised it would be the last. Every single time. Our father always defended her. She's still figuring life out. You've always been more responsible. Family helps family. Those words became so familiar that eventually I stopped questioning them. Helping Olivia became part of my identity. I wasn't just Emily anymore. I was the dependable daughter, the responsible sister, the emergency contact, the backup plan, the family safety net. I didn't realize how dangerous that role had become until one ordinary Tuesday. Olivia called around noon. Emily? Her voice sounded exhausted. I hate asking, but could I borrow your debit card for groceries? I looked at the therapy schedule on my desk. I can just order groceries online. No. She laughed softly. I need a few household things too. Toilet paper, cleaning supplies, cat food. She paused. I'll bring your card back tonight. I hesitated. Something inside me whispered not to do it. Then she added the sentence that always worked. I wouldn't ask if I had anyone else. 20 minutes later, she picked the card up from the hospital entrance. She hugged me. You seriously saved my life. Every time. Those words used to make me proud. Now they make me sick. That evening, she texted me a picture of grocery bags. See? Told you. Love you. I smiled. I believed her. The next morning, I woke up at 6:18. Wednesday was payroll day. Every payday, I checked my accounts before leaving for work. I opened my banking app. At first I thought the application had frozen. The balance couldn't be right. I refreshed it. Then again, my checking account showed just $312.44. Available funds yesterday. More than $8,000. My heart started pounding. There were 9 transactions. Luxury hotel, designer boutique, electronics store, jewelry purchase, rideshare charges, several digital wallet transfers, a cryptocurrency exchange, and multiple cash withdrawals. Total, $8,140.73. I couldn't breathe. I kept refreshing the screen as though the numbers might apologize and disappear. Instead, another pending transaction appeared. My hands started shaking. The coffee mug slipped from my fingers and shattered across the kitchen floor. I never even looked at it. I immediately called Olivia. No answer. Again. Voicemail. Again. Again. On the fifth attempt, she finally answered. What? She sounded annoyed. You have my debit card. So? My voice became strangely calm. There are over $8,000 missing. Silence. Then she laughed. Oh. What do you mean, oh? The hotel probably placed temporary holds. What about the jewelry store? The electronics? The cryptocurrency? Another pause. We should talk in person. No. We'll talk right now. She sighed loudly. You always overreact. My stomach dropped. Not because of the money, because she wasn't denying anything. You spent it. I'll pay you back. When? When my investment closes. What investment? The one I told you about. You never told me about any investment. She became defensive. You never listen. Olivia. I'm busy. She hung up. I stared at the phone. For a long moment, I simply sat there. Then I opened online banking on my laptop. The details were even worse. The hotel reservation had been booked for 2 guests. The jewelry purchase included a custom engraving. The electronics had already been picked up. One transfer had been made using my email address. Not hers, mine. I searched my inbox. Nothing. Then I checked spam. There they were. Verification emails, password confirmations, recovery requests. Some dating back almost 5 months. She hadn't stolen my money overnight. She had been quietly preparing. My stomach twisted. I called the bank. The representative froze the account immediately. She explained that recovering some transactions could be difficult because I had voluntarily handed my card to another person. I understood. Legally, this wasn't simple fraud. Emotionally, it felt much worse. Someone had planned to betray me. Someone who knew exactly how I lived. Exactly when I worked. Exactly when I wouldn't notice. At 8:41, I drove to Olivia's apartment. I waited. At exactly 9:19, a black SUV stopped outside. Olivia climbed out wearing sunglasses. Beside her was an elegant woman around 30. She carried a shopping bag from the designer boutique listed on my account. When they saw me, Olivia froze. The other woman smiled politely. Oh, she looked at Olivia. Is this your business partner? Business partner? Olivia forced an awkward smile. This is my sister. The woman extended her hand. I'm Vanessa. It's nice to meet you. She looked genuinely kind. Then she said something that changed everything. Olivia tells me the two of you own the wellness consulting company together. I blinked. I'm sorry? Vanessa laughed. She talks about you constantly. My heart began racing. Olivia interrupted. We don't need to. Vanessa continued smiling. I invested $5,000 last month. Everything around me seemed to go quiet. I looked directly at Olivia. You told her. Olivia wouldn't meet my eyes. That I was your business partner? Vanessa's smile slowly disappeared. I spoke carefully. I have absolutely no idea what company she's talking about. Vanessa frowned. What? I've never owned any business with my sister. She looked from me to Olivia. Then back again. You said Emily handled all the finances. Olivia swallowed. I can explain. No. Vanessa's voice became colder. You said your sister invested over $50,000. I felt physically ill. I never invested $1. Vanessa's face turned white. She slowly removed a bracelet from her wrist. Olivia. Her voice cracked. Is any of this real? Olivia started talking rapidly. It's complicated. No. It isn't. I stepped forward. My sister borrowed my bank card yesterday for groceries. Vanessa looked confused. I woke up missing over $8,000. The silence that followed felt endless. Finally, Vanessa whispered, Oh my God. She turned toward Olivia. You used your sister's money? Olivia immediately switched strategies. It isn't like that. It is exactly like that. You don't understand the pressure I've been under. Vanessa shook her head. You lied about everything. She handed me a business card. If you need screenshots. She looked like she might cry. I saved every message. I nodded. Please don't delete anything. Olivia glared at me. You really want to do this? I answered quietly. You already did. Vanessa walked away without another word. Olivia watched her leave, then she exploded. You ruined everything. I stared at her. I ruined it? You embarrassed me. You stole over $8,000. I was going to fix it. How? My investors. There are no investors. She looked away. That was answer enough. I held out my hand. My card. She hesitated. My card. Slowly, she removed it from her purse. I slipped it into my wallet. Then I asked one final question. How long have you been using my information? She didn't answer. That silence frightened me more than anything she could have said. I drove home without looking back. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about how to save my sister. I was wondering how much I didn't know. That afternoon, I started opening old files. Emails. Tax records. Shared folders. Cloud storage. Everything. Little by little, the truth began appearing. My name had been mentioned in investor presentations. My salary had been exaggerated. My savings had been listed as company assets. Someone had even created professional documents using my digital signature. Every discovery felt heavier than the last. This wasn't one terrible decision. It was an entire life built on the assumption that I would never say no. Around 6 that evening, my father called. The moment I answered, he sighed dramatically. Emily, here we go. Your sister is terrified. She should be. You embarrassed her in front of people. I told the truth. She made a mistake. I closed my eyes. Mistakes don't last 5 months. He ignored that. She's under a lot of stress. So am I. You're stronger. There it was again, the sentence I'd heard since childhood. You're stronger. Translation: you can absorb more pain. So absorb this one too. I remained silent. My father continued. Just give her time. Time for what? To fix everything. With whose money? He didn't answer. Instead, he quietly asked, can you at least keep paying her apartment until this blows over? I looked out the kitchen window. Rain had begun falling. Water slid slowly down the glass. Something inside me finally became perfectly clear. Nothing was ever going to blow over. Not unless I allowed it. That night, at exactly 10:08, I opened every financial document connecting me to Olivia, and I realized I had far more power than she thought. I picked up my notebook. On a clean page, I wrote a single sentence. Tonight, I stopped protecting lies. Then, I began preparing the one decision that would completely change my sister's life before the next sunrise. Part 2. I didn't spend that night plotting revenge. I wasn't interested in humiliating Olivia. I wasn't looking for a dramatic confrontation. I simply started removing myself from every system that had quietly allowed her lies to survive. The first document I opened was her apartment lease. 2 years earlier, Olivia had begged me to become her guarantor. I have enough income, she had insisted. The apartment just wants someone with stronger credit. I remembered sitting beside her in the leasing office. She squeezed my hand. I promise you'll never regret this. At the time, it felt like an act of love. Now it felt like another contract built on false promises. Her lease renewal was scheduled to process automatically at 7:30 the following morning. The agreement clearly stated that a guarantor could withdraw before renewal if financial information had been intentionally misrepresented. I gathered every piece of evidence. The fake investor documents, the altered financial statements, screenshots showing that my salary had been presented as company funding, the emails connected to my identity. Then I uploaded everything through the property management portal. I attached one final letter. Effective immediately, I withdraw all financial responsibility connected to Olivia Harper's lease due to repeated fraudulent misrepresentation of my identity and financial assets. I pressed submit. One task finished. 3 more remained. Next came the automatic rent payments. Most people, including Olivia, didn't know they existed. Years earlier, after she had almost been evicted, I quietly arranged a backup authorization with my bank. If her rent ever became overdue, the payment would automatically come from my emergency savings. She couldn't access the account herself, but she knew the safety net existed. She often joked about it. My landlord thinks I'm responsible. Then she'd grin. But really, it's you. I used to laugh. Now I simply logged into my bank, canceled the authorization, requested written confirmation. Done. The third step hurt more than I expected. Not because it was difficult, because of what it represented. I opened a cloud folder called Olivia Business Files. Over 80 documents, business plans, investment presentations, cash flow projections, letters, contracts, pitch decks, professional biographies, dozens of files carrying my name. Without my permission. Without my knowledge. One presentation described me as Chief Financial Director. Another claimed I had personally invested $96,000. Another listed my hospital position as proof of financial stability. I felt physically sick. For years, my identity had been working harder for Olivia than I had. I highlighted every document, deleted access, then replaced the folder with one single PDF. The title read, Notice: Emily Harper has never invested in, endorsed, managed, financed, or authorized any company operated by Olivia Harper. Nothing more. Nothing less. My fourth call went to Vanessa. She answered immediately. I was hoping you'd call. I'm sorry. You don't need to apologize. I do. There was silence. Then she quietly admitted. I ignored so many warning signs. So did I. She laughed sadly. I thought I was the only one. You weren't. I explained that the bank had opened an investigation. She immediately offered every screenshot, every email, every voice message. I'll send everything. Thank you. Before hanging up, she asked one question. Do you think your sister ever cared about me? I thought carefully before answering. I think she cared. A pause. But caring about someone isn't the same as treating them honestly. Vanessa whispered. I guess I finally understand that. At 11:54 p.m., I opened one final document. A repayment agreement. Nothing complicated. No impossible demands. Just facts. Olivia would acknowledge every unauthorized use of my money and identity. She would disclose every account connected to my personal information. She would make structured monthly payments. She would stop contacting anyone using my name. If she refused, I would pursue civil action. I scheduled the email. Delivery time, 7:35 a.m., exactly 5 minutes after her lease renewal system activated. Then, for the first time in months, I turned my phone completely off. I slept, deeply, peacefully, at exactly 7:35 Wednesday morning. Everything happened, almost simultaneously. Olivia later admitted she had been drinking coffee while checking 3 different apps. Her apartment portal, her business email, her bank account. The apartment portal displayed a notification, lease renewal suspended, reason, financial guarantor withdrawn. She refreshed. Same message, then another notification appeared. Automatic rent payment, failed. Before she even understood what that meant, her investor folder disappeared. Every document she had shown potential partners, gone. Replaced by my notice. Then my email arrived. Subject, formal repayment agreement. At nearly the same second, Vanessa texted. My attorney has reviewed everything. According to Olivia's downstairs neighbor, the scream echoed through the entire hallway. I woke up around 8. Turned my phone back on. 17 missed calls. 9 voice messages. 34 texts. The first message read, Emily, call me now. The second, what did you do? Then, this isn't funny. Then, please answer. Then, You're destroying my life. The final message simply said, I'm scared. I stared at the screen. Months earlier, that message would have sent me racing to rescue her. Instead, I got dressed, made breakfast, fed my dog, and drove to work. Children don't care about adult family drama. The little boy I worked with that morning was recovering after spinal surgery. His biggest concern was learning to button his own jacket. Watching him celebrate something so small reminded me how strange adulthood can become. Children fight for independence. Some adults spend years avoiding it. Around lunchtime, my best friend Rachel noticed I hadn't touched my food. Rachel managed rehabilitation scheduling. She knew me better than almost anyone. You've been staring at your sandwich for 5 minutes. I smiled weakly. My sister stole over $8,000. Rachel blinked. What? I told her everything. The card. The fake business. The lies. The documents. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked only one question. Have you frozen your credit? I frowned. No. She immediately opened her laptop. Let's do it. Within 20 minutes, we froze my files with all 3 credit bureaus. Changed passwords. Updated recovery emails. Added 2-factor authentication everywhere. Then Rachel leaned back. Can I ask something uncomfortable? Sure. When did you become responsible for your sister? The answer appeared instantly. I was 15. Rachel waited. My mom had emergency surgery. Olivia was 11. She forgot to finish a huge school project, so I stayed awake all night building it for her. She got an A. Mom cried when she came home. She hugged me and said, I never have to worry when you're around. Rachel quietly nodded. And after that, I kept doing it. Homework, bills, applications, job interviews, apartments, resumes, taxes, life. Rachel looked directly at me. Emily. She spoke very softly. You didn't become her sister. You became her second parent. Those words stayed with me the rest of the day. Because they were true. At 11:12, my office phone rang. Reception transferred the call. My father. Without saying hello, he immediately began. Reverse whatever you did. I closed my office door. No. Emily. She lied. I know. That surprised me. You know? Yes. Then why are you defending her? Because she's terrified. So was I. He sighed. She'll lose her apartment. She may. You can stop that. I could. Silence. Then he said something I'll never forget. You're the older sister. As if that explained everything. You've always carried more. I never asked to. You don't abandon family. I felt something inside me settle, not break. Settle. Like dust finally reaching the ground. I am not abandoning anyone. I'm refusing to finance deception. His voice hardened. If your mother were alive, I interrupted him. No. He stopped speaking. You don't get to use Mom. More silence. Finally, I said quietly. Mom taught me kindness. She never taught me to become someone's wallet. Then I hung up. For the first time in my life, I ended the conversation before the guilt could begin. That afternoon, things became much worse for Olivia, and much bigger than I had imagined. Around 3 o'clock, the hospital receptionist called my office. There are 2 people asking for you. I don't have appointments. They say it's urgent. I walked downstairs. Standing near the entrance were 2 men in business suits. One introduced himself. My name is Daniel Brooks. The other nodded. I'm Michael Jensen. Neither looked angry. Just confused. We've been trying to reach Olivia. I stayed silent. Daniel continued. She told us you were chief financial officer. My stomach tightened. Of what? Our healthcare consulting startup. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, because I couldn't believe there were even more lies waiting underneath the ones I'd already uncovered. I've never worked with either of you. Both men exchanged worried looks. Michael slowly opened a folder. Inside was my photograph, my LinkedIn profile, my hospital biography, my signature, or something pretending to be my signature. Daniel looked genuinely horrified. She said you approved everything. I took a deep breath. No, I didn't. And in that moment, I realized this story was far from over, because Olivia hadn't stolen only my money. She had built an entire fake professional life, using mine. The two businessmen didn't accuse me of anything. They didn't threaten me. In fact, they looked almost embarrassed. Daniel carefully slid the folder across the table. We wanted to verify a few financial details before signing the partnership. I opened it. Every page made my stomach tighten. There was my hospital biography, my professional license number, photos taken directly from my LinkedIn profile. My salary, doubled. My savings, completely invented. There was even a forged letter stating that I had personally guaranteed a future investment of $180,000. I looked up. I've never seen any of this before. Neither man spoke. Finally, Michael sighed. I believe you. Daniel slowly closed the folder. We'll be contacting our attorney. I understand. They thanked me for my honesty and quietly left. I watched them disappear through the hospital entrance. Then I realized something. This was never about one stolen debit card. Olivia had built an entire imaginary life using mine. 3 days later, my attorney called. The good news came first. Most of the electronics purchases had been canceled before delivery. Part of the hotel charges would also be reversed. The bad news? The cryptocurrency transfers. Cash withdrawals. Digital wallet payments. Those would almost certainly remain my responsibility because I had voluntarily handed Olivia my bank card. Even after the reversals, she still owed me over $5,700. Money wasn't the hardest part anymore. Trust was. That Friday evening, Dad invited both of us to dinner. I almost didn't go. Then I realized, for years I had avoided uncomfortable conversations because I wanted peace. Real peace doesn't come from avoiding conflict. It comes from telling the truth. When I arrived, Olivia was already there. She looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes. No makeup, no designer clothes. No confidence. Dad immediately began. We're here to solve this. I calmly placed my repayment agreement on the table. I already have a solution. Olivia didn't even open it. Instead, she whispered, I lost everything. I remained silent. My investors left. They were never your investors. My apartment won't renew. You lied on the application. My business is over. It never existed. Tears filled her eyes. You don't understand. No, I answered quietly. I finally do. She stared at me. For years I believed every emergency was temporary, but your emergencies were becoming your lifestyle. Dad interrupted. Emily, no. I looked at both of them. Today, you will listen. The room became completely silent. I paid your rent. I fixed your car. I wrote your resumes. I filled out your applications. I answered calls from your landlords. I transferred money. I canceled vacations. I skipped conferences. I delayed buying my own home. I organized my entire life around making sure yours didn't fall apart. I looked directly at Olivia. And every time I rescued you, I taught you that someone else would always clean up the mess. She began crying. I never meant. I know, I interrupted gently. But intentions don't erase consequences. Dad quietly asked, What happens now? I pushed the agreement toward Olivia. You acknowledge every debt. You disclose every account using my information. You attend financial counseling. You repay what you can. And from today forward, I never sign another document for you. Olivia finally picked up the agreement. She read every page. Halfway through, she stopped. I can't believe you had an attorney write this. I didn't. It came from my employee legal assistance program. She looked embarrassed. Then something surprised me. She signed it. Without arguing. Without negotiating. Without asking for another chance. Just signed. The next several months were difficult. Olivia lost her apartment. She moved into temporary housing offered through a financial recovery nonprofit. The fake consulting company officially dissolved. Vanessa filed a civil claim to recover her investment. The two businessmen abandoned every partnership discussion. No one trusted Olivia anymore. Dad wanted to help financially. For the first time in his life, he didn't. Instead, he helped her find counseling, debt management classes, employment assistance. He finally understood something I had spent years trying to explain. Support and rescue are not the same thing. Life became strangely quiet. For the first time in years, nobody called asking for money. Nobody created emergencies. Nobody expected me to solve impossible problems before breakfast. The silence felt uncomfortable. Then peaceful. Rachel convinced me to apply for a leadership position at the hospital. For 4 years, I had refused promotions. Why? Because Olivia's constant crises made flexibility more important than ambition. Now, nothing stopped me. 3 months later, I became Director of Pediatric Rehabilitation Services. It wasn't just a promotion, it was proof of how much energy I had been spending surviving someone else's chaos. Therapy also changed me. During one session, my counselor asked, "When did helping become more important than living?" I answered immediately, "When Mom got sick." She nodded. "And when did you decide that your sister's problems were your responsibility forever?" I couldn't answer. Because I never consciously decided. It had simply become my identity. The reliable daughter. The responsible sister. The fixer. The rescuer. Without realizing it, I had confused love with self-sacrifice. About 6 months later, I received an envelope. Inside was a cashier's check. $75. The first repayment. There was also a handwritten note. "Emily, I know $75 changes nothing, but it's money I earned honestly. I'm working mornings cleaning office buildings. I attend counseling 4 nights every week. Today I'm 93 days without creating a single lie. I don't expect forgiveness. I only wanted you to know the payment came from me. Olivia." I folded the note, placed it inside my desk drawer, and went back to work. Months earlier, I would have called immediately, praised her, encouraged her, made her feel better. Instead, I let her actions speak for themselves. One payment didn't rebuild trust, neither did one apology. Real change repeats itself. The payments continued. Every month, small, consistent, never late. After the 6th payment, Olivia asked if we could meet for coffee. I agreed. She arrived wearing a maintenance uniform. She looked embarrassed. "I clean medical offices now. How do you like it?" She smiled. "It's honest." That sentence stayed with me. Honest, something so ordinary had become an achievement. We talked for almost an hour. She never asked for money. Never blamed Dad. Never blamed me. When the check arrived, she paid for her own coffee. I noticed because, years earlier, I would have reached for the bill before she even saw it. Neither of us moved. She paid. And somehow, that tiny moment meant more than every apology she'd ever given. Exactly 1 year after she borrowed my debit card, I stood inside the Children's Rehabilitation Hospital, looking through a large window overlooking the therapy garden. My office had changed. My responsibilities had grown. My life finally belonged to me again. Olivia was still making monthly payments. She had completed counseling. She rented a small studio apartment. She wasn't wealthy. She wasn't successful, but she had stopped pretending to be someone she wasn't. Dad also changed. When Olivia asked him for money one afternoon, he didn't send cash. He helped her apply for a vocational assistance grant instead. Later, he admitted something. "I thought protecting her was love." I smiled sadly. So did I. During one family counseling session, Olivia said something I never expected. "I hated how perfect you seemed." I looked at her. "You always knew what to do. You always had a plan. Every time you rescued me, I felt smaller. So eventually, I convinced myself you owed me." The room became quiet. She continued, "I made you the villain because it was easier than admitting I was afraid." I nodded slowly. "I appreciate your honesty." Then I added something equally important. "But understanding why you hurt me doesn't erase what happened." She quietly answered, "I know." For the first time, I believed her. People often ask whether I forgave my sister. The answer is yes, but probably not in the way most people imagine. Forgiveness wasn't forgetting. It wasn't pretending everything returned to normal. It wasn't giving her another debit card. Forgiveness simply meant I stopped allowing anger to control my future. Trust. That was different. Trust had to be rebuilt one ordinary day at a time. One honest paycheck. One truthful conversation. One responsibility accepted without excuses. Looking back, the most important thing I did wasn't freezing my accounts. It wasn't hiring an attorney. It wasn't canceling the lease guarantee. It wasn't even confronting Olivia. The most important thing I ever did was allowing another adult to experience the natural consequences of her own choices. For years, I believed protecting someone from consequences was kindness. It wasn't. It delayed growth. For both of us. Sometimes people ask whether I felt guilty after Olivia briefly lost her apartment. Yes, I did. But guilt isn't always proof that you've done something wrong. Sometimes, it's proof that you've stopped doing what people expected you to keep doing forever. Today, my banking alerts arrive within seconds. My credit remains frozen unless I personally need it. No one has access to my financial accounts. Every important agreement exists in writing. Those things matter, but none of them are my greatest protection. The greatest protection is one simple word: no. No can save years of pain. No can protect peace. No can preserve dignity. No can stop a cycle that kindness alone never could. Before leaving work one evening, Olivia stopped by the hospital. She handed me another repayment check, then quietly asked, "Do you think we'll ever be sisters again?" I thought for a long moment. Finally, I answered honestly, "I think we're becoming something better." She looked confused. Real sisters, not one rescuer, not one dependent. Just two adults trying to build a relationship based on honesty instead of obligation. She smiled. The kind of smile that didn't ask me to fix anything. Then she left. I watched her walk toward the parking lot. For the first time in years, I didn't wonder whether she needed saving. I simply hoped she kept choosing the life she was finally building herself. And somehow, that felt like freedom, because freedom didn't arrive the day Olivia finally understood my pain. Freedom arrived the day I realized I no longer needed her understanding to protect my own life. What would you have done if you were in my position? Would you have removed the financial safety net immediately, given your sister one last chance, or continued helping because she was family? Share your honest opinion in the comments. Your experience might help someone else recognize the difference between supporting a loved one and sacrificing themselves to protect that person from accountability. We hope this fictional story brought you emotion, suspense, and something meaningful to reflect on. It was created for storytelling, entertainment, and educational purposes. If this story leaves you with one message, let it be this: never confuse unlimited sacrifice with love. The healthiest relationships aren't built on rescuing people from consequences. They're built on honesty, accountability, and mutual respect.